Aspen had worked for that application for 3 years, not as a figure of speech. 3 years of AP classes taken specifically to strengthen her academic profile. 3 years of extracurriculars chosen deliberately. 3 years of essay drafts, recommendation letter requests, campus visits, and the specific disciplined hope of a girl who had decided what she wanted and had built every available year toward it. She had been accepted to 4 universities. Her parents had found the acceptance letters first. What happened next was not an accident, and it was not a miscommunication. Her father had sat her down at the kitchen table and explained, in the careful language of a man who had already made a decision and was delivering it rather than discussing it, that the family's financial resources were being directed toward her brother Caleb's trade program. That Caleb's opportunities were time-sensitive. That Aspen was resilient, their word, delivered as a compliment, and would find another way. The applications, the acceptance letters, the financial aid paperwork, her father had burned them in the backyard fire pit that same evening. Aspen had watched from her bedroom window. She had not cried that night. She had been too specific in her understanding of what had just happened to cry. She had sat at her window and watched the papers burn and had thought, with the particular clarity that arrived sometimes at the worst moments, that she was going to need to remember this exactly as it was. She had remembered. 6 months later, her grandmother's lawyer had called, and what he said had changed everything about who held the future in this family. Before Robert Crane tells Aspen what Vera built for her in the 3 weeks after the fire pit, hit subscribe right now. Because what Vera did in those 3 weeks is one of the most quietly powerful acts of love in this entire story. New videos every single week. Hit like if you have ever had something built for you take you completely by surprise. Drop a comment. Have you ever had someone protect you from a distance without telling you they were doing it? Now let's go back to Spokane. Because Aspen is watching the fire pit from her bedroom window, and 6 months from now everything is going to change. My name is Aspen. I am 26 years old and I live in Spokane, Washington. For the past 3 years, I have organized my entire academic life around a single clear destination, a 4-year university degree, earned through my own preparation and my own work, and the financial aid that my grades and my profile had made available to me. I had taken the AP classes not because they were required, but because they strengthened the application. I had chosen my extracurriculars with the same deliberate intention. I had drafted my essays through 7 revisions because the 7th version was better than the 6th, and I had known the difference. I had built something real and specific and entirely mine over 3 years, and then my parents found it first. The acceptance letters had come in March, 4 of them, arriving across 2 weeks in the specific sequence of universities with different notification timelines. The first had come on a Tuesday, and I had opened it at the mailbox before I was even back inside the house, standing on the front path in the March cold reading my name at the top of a letter that said congratulations and meant it. I had been accepted with a partial merit scholarship. I went inside and sat at my desk and read it 4 more times. The second letter had come the following week, the third and fourth within days of each other. 4 acceptances. 2 with financial aid packages that made attendance genuinely viable. I had organized them in a folder and had been carrying the folder in my bag for 3 days before my parents found it. My dad had found the folder on a Sunday morning. I had left my bag on the kitchen chair the night before, and the folder had been visible through the open zipper. He had read every letter by the time I came downstairs for breakfast. He was sitting at the kitchen table with them spread out in front of him, and his hands flat on the surface, and the expression of a man who had already decided something, and was waiting for the person the decision concerned to sit down. My mom was at the counter with her back slightly turned, the specific body language of someone who knew what was coming, and had decided not to be the one who said it. My dad told me to sit down. I sat down. He looked at me with the careful calm of a man who had rehearsed what he was going to say, and was now delivering it. He talked for about 8 minutes. He said the family's financial situation had been more pressured than they had let on. He said Caleb's trade program had a specific enrollment window that couldn't be deferred, that the opportunity was time-sensitive in a way that my college timeline wasn't. He said the family's resources needed to go where the most urgent need was. He said I was resilient. He used the word twice, both times with the tone of someone offering a genuine compliment, and that I would find another way. He said there were community college options, work programs, paths that didn't require the financial commitment of a 4-year university right now. He said he was sorry about the timing. He said it in the specific register of someone who was sorry about the inconvenience of a decision without being sorry about the decision itself. I listened to all of it without interrupting. He gathered the letters and the financial aid paperwork and my application copies from the folder after the conversation, gathered them with the specific efficiency of a man completing a task rather than destroying something, and carried them through the kitchen and out the back door. I heard the back door close. I heard the sound of the fire pit being used, the strike of the lighter, the specific ambient quality of outdoor burning. I was still at the kitchen table. My mom had left the counter and was somewhere else in the house. I sat at the table for a few minutes and then I got up and went upstairs to my bedroom and stood at the window that faced the backyard. The fire pit was in the far corner. My father was standing beside it. The papers were burning. I stood at the window for the length of time it took for everything to burn, which was not very long, paper being what it was. I watched with the specific quality of attention I brought to things I understood I needed to remember accurately. I noted the time on my phone, 8:14 in the evening. I noted what I could see, the fire pit, my father standing beside it, the specific orange quality of burning paper in the March dark. I did not cry. I had expected to cry and found that I wasn't. What I felt was not the hot, immediate devastation of something sudden. It was the colder, more specific feeling of a person watching something confirmed that they had suspected was possible. I had not known my parents were capable of this specific thing. Now I did. I filed it with the precision of someone who understood it was going to matter later. I went to bed that night at 10, not because I was calm, just because lying in the dark was the right place to be with what had happened, and there was nowhere better to be. I lay on my back and looked at the ceiling and thought with the specific deliberate clarity that sometimes arrived at the worst moments. I thought about what I still had my transcripts, which existed in my school system and could not be burned. My test scores, which were in the college board's records. My teacher relationships, which were real and documented. My own knowledge of the work I had done and the profile I had built. None of that had been in the folder. None of that had gone into the fire pit. I thought, I am going to need to remember this exactly as it was, and I am going to need to be ready, because something is going to change. I did not know yet what. I went to sleep. Aspen woke the morning after the fire pit with the specific clarity of someone who had processed something completely during the night and had arrived at the other side of it ready to move. She did not have a plan yet, she had a posture, which was the thing that came before the plan. The posture was forward-facing. She was not going to spend the weeks after the fire pit in the particular paralysis of grief that would have been entirely understandable and entirely unproductive. She made a list at her desk before breakfast, what she still had, what she needed, what the realistic paths forward looked like from where she was standing. The list was honest and it was not short. She started working through it that same morning. She had found a job within the first week, a position at a local bookstore that had been hiring for a weekend shift, and that had expanded to 3 weekday evenings when the manager had seen how she worked. The pay was modest and the hours were manageable alongside her senior year coursework, and she had opened a separate savings account the day she received her first paycheck, an account her parents did not have access to and did not know existed. She deposited every paycheck in full and spent from her existing small savings for anything she needed personally. By the end of the third month, the separate account had enough in it to cover a community college application fee, a semester of books, and a bus pass for 6 months. She kept adding to it. Vera had been calling every Sunday since Aspen was 14. The calls had started the year Aspen's grandfather had passed, and Vera had apparently decided that consistent contact with her grandchildren was something she was going to prioritize with the specific intention of someone who had learned that relationships required active tending. The calls ran between 20 and 40 minutes and covered real territory. Vera asked about Aspen's actual week, her actual thinking, the actual texture of what was happening rather than the surface version. She listened to the answers with genuine attention. She had known about the college applications before the burning. Aspen's dad had mentioned them at a Christmas dinner, speaking about them with the pride of a parent whose child had accomplished something before he had made the decision that burned them. Vera had been watching her son manage his family for 20 years with the specific attention of a mother who loved her child and had learned to see him clearly, which meant seeing both his genuine qualities and his patterns. She had noticed the particular way he had spoken about Aspen's college plans at Christmas, the slight edge in the pride, the way he had mentioned the financial aid packages with a tone that carried something other than straightforward pleasure. She had filed it without acting on it because she had not had enough information to act on. When she had called Aspen in March for their regular Sunday conversation, and Aspen had told her, in the carefully measured way she told difficult things, what had happened with the applications and the fire pit, Vera had been quiet on the line for a long moment. Then she said, "Tell me everything." The question had come 4 weeks after the fire pit, during a Sunday call that had started with ordinary topics and had shifted when Vera had said she wanted to ask Aspen something directly and needed a direct answer. She had asked whether Aspen still wanted to attend a 4-year university. Not whether she thought it was possible, not whether she had a plan, not whether she had come to terms with the alternative, just whether she still wanted it. Aspen had not paused before answering. She had said yes, simply and without qualification, the specific yes of someone stating a fact about themselves rather than expressing a wish. Vera had been quiet for a moment after the answer. Then she said, "Good, that is what I needed to know." After Aspen's answer, Vera had said something that Aspen had written down after the call ended and had kept on her desk for the following 5 months. Vera had said she was glad to know what Aspen wanted, and that she had been making some calls and doing some thinking, and that she needed Aspen to trust her for a little while. She had said it with the specific weight of someone asking for trust they intended to justify rather than someone offering reassurance without substance. She had said she could not tell Aspen everything yet because some of it needed to be handled in the right sequence and at the right time. She had said, "Just keep going the way you are going. Keep working, keep saving. Don't let this make you small." Aspen had written it down word for word. She had read it most mornings for 5 months. The call had come on a Tuesday morning in September, 6 months after the fire pit, 2 months into Aspen's first semester at community college, on a morning when she had been at her desk reviewing notes before her 8 o'clock class. The number had been unfamiliar, and she had almost let it go to voicemail, had answered on the third ring with the slight hesitation of someone picking up an unknown number. The man on the other end had identified himself as Robert Crane, attorney, calling on behalf of Vera. He had said Vera had asked him to contact Aspen directly. He had said there was information Vera wanted her to have, and that he had been asked to deliver it in a phone call rather than a letter, because Vera had wanted Aspen to be able to ask questions in real time. He had asked if she had 20 minutes. She had closed her notebook and said yes. Robert Crane had the specific measured quality of someone who had spent 22 years delivering significant information to people who were not always prepared to receive it. An unhurried clarity that communicated both precision and genuine care for how the information landed. He had opened the call by confirming he was speaking with Aspen and that she was alone and had privacy for the conversation. He had said that what he was about to tell her was entirely good news, but that it was substantial, and he wanted her to have the space to hear it properly. He had asked her to let him finish before she responded. She had said she understood. He had taken a breath and begun, and within the first 60 seconds, she had understood that the 5 months of Sunday calls and Vera's request for trust had been building toward something real. He told her that Vera had established an education trust in Aspen's name, a formal legal instrument, properly structured, administered by his firm with Aspen as the sole named beneficiary. He said the trust had been funded specifically for Aspen's 4-year university education, tuition, housing, books, and a modest living allowance for the full duration of a standard degree program. He said the trust terms were explicit and unambiguous. The funds existed for Aspen's education and for no other purpose, could not be redirected, could not be accessed by any other family member, and would be administered by his firm independently of any family involvement. He said Vera had been very specific about those terms. He said she had reviewed them twice before signing. He told her the amount, clearly, without preamble, the way accurate information needed to be delivered when the person receiving it had been operating for 6 months without it. The figure was sufficient to cover 4 full years at any of the universities that had originally accepted her. He had confirmed this against the financial aid estimates in Aspen's original acceptance letters, which Vera had apparently obtained and provided to him as part of his preparation for the call. There was a modest remainder built in for unexpected expenses. He said Vera had not wanted the trust to cover most of the education. She had wanted it to cover all of it, so that Aspen's decisions about where to go and what to study would not be constrained by financial gaps that required her to compromise. Robert walked her through the trust terms in full, not in legal language, but in the plain, clear English he apparently used when the person receiving the information was 18 and needed to understand what had been built for her, rather than simply knowing it existed. The funds were administered by his firm independently. Disbursements required his firm's authorization and Aspen's documented enrollment verification, nothing else. No family member had any role in the administration. No family member could petition for access or redirect or modification. The trust was irrevocable. Vera had made it irrevocable specifically, Robert said, because she had wanted Aspen to know with certainty that what had been established could not be undone by anyone after the fact. He said the word irrevocable twice. Aspen understood why. He told her when the trust had been established, and the date landed with a specific weight that took Aspen a moment to fully receive. 3 weeks after the fire pit. Vera had moved within 3 weeks of learning what had happened, had contacted Robert, had explained the situation, had provided the documentation he needed, and had funded the trust from her own savings in a single transfer that he described as having arrived in his firm's trust account with a note that said simply, "For Aspen's education, irrevocable, administer as discussed." He said Vera had known exactly what she was doing and had done it with the specific efficiency of someone who had made a decision completely and was executing it without ambivalence. He said she had not told Aspen's parents. She had not told anyone. She had simply done it. Robert asked her whether she still had contact information for the 4 universities that had originally accepted her, whether she had kept any of the documentation from her original applications that would allow her to reestablish contact with those admissions offices. Aspen had told him yes, she had kept her transcripts, her test scores, her copies of the essays she had drafted, and the names and contact information for the admissions contacts she had corresponded with during the application process. She had kept all of it in a folder she had assembled specifically because she had gone to bed on the night of the fire pit with the thought that she needed to be ready when something changed. Robert had been quiet for a moment after she told him that. Then he had said, "Vera was right about you." Robert told her the last thing before ending the call, said Vera had asked him to convey something directly in her own words rather than paraphrasing it. He said Vera had told him to tell Aspen that the door was open and that she just needed to walk through it. He said Vera had also said one other thing, that she was sorry it had taken 6 months, that she had needed to make sure everything was properly structured before telling Aspen, and that she had thought about calling sooner every single week for 5 months and had made herself wait until Robert confirmed the trust was fully established and protected. He said Vera had wanted Aspen to receive the information only when the thing it described was completely real and completely safe. Aspen had been quiet on the line for a moment. Then she said, "Please tell her thank you." Robert had said he would. He had said Vera already knew. Aspen had ended the call with Robert Crane at 9:43 in the morning. She knew the time because she had noted it with the habit she had developed of noting times that mattered. She had sat at her desk for 11 minutes. Then she had opened the folder she had kept for 6 months. Transcripts, test scores, essay copies, the admissions contact names and institutional email addresses she had preserved with the specific intention of a person who had gone to bed on the night of the fire pit, knowing she would need them eventually. She had called all 4 admissions offices that same afternoon, had identified herself, explained her situation professionally and without emotional framing, and asked specifically about deferred enrollment options for a previously accepted applicant. 2 of the 4 universities had been able to accommodate her inquiry. The other 2 had policies that made reinstatement after a full year gap significantly more complicated, and the admissions contacts at both had been genuinely apologetic in the way of people who wished the answer were different. The 2 who could help had been specific and practical. One had a mid-year enrollment option for the spring semester that was 4 months away, and one had a full fall reinstatement pathway that would place her on a standard 4-year track beginning the following September. Both had asked her to submit a brief written explanation of her enrollment gap, along with updated transcripts confirming her community college coursework. She had thanked all 4 contacts and had ended each call with the professional composure she had been building for 6 months. The university with the spring enrollment option had called her back the following Thursday. The admissions contact she had spoken with had apparently taken her situation to the financial aid office, and the call had been a 3-way conversation between herself, the admissions contact, and a financial aid coordinator who had something specific to offer. The university was prepared to reinstate her original financial aid package, the merit scholarship, and the need-based grant that had been part of her original acceptance, in full for the spring enrollment. The coordinator had said the package had been preserved in their system because Aspen's original acceptance had been flagged as a deferred enrollment rather than a withdrawal, a distinction that had apparently been entered by an admissions staff member who had received no formal notification that Aspen would not be attending. She had confirmed the enrollment that same Thursday afternoon, had completed the electronic paperwork the admissions office sent, had submitted the brief written explanation of her gap that both offices had requested, and had provided her community college transcripts showing the semester she had completed. She had called Robert Crane immediately after confirming and had told him the enrollment was set for the spring semester beginning in January. He had asked for the university's tuition and housing billing information so his firm could prepare the first disbursement from the trust. She had sent it by email within the hour. He had confirmed receipt and said the disbursement would be processed within 5 business days. She had put the phone down and sat at her desk in the specific quiet of someone who had just walked through the door Vera had told her was open. She had told her parents on a Sunday evening, had sat down at the same kitchen table where her father had delivered his decision 9 months earlier, and had told them she was enrolling in university in January. She had presented it the way her father had presented the fire pit decision to her, as a fact rather than a discussion, with the information organized and the decision already made. She had said there was a trust established in her name by Vera that covered her full education. She had said the enrollment was confirmed and the financial arrangements were handled. She had said she was not asking for their support or their input. She was telling them what was happening because they were her parents and she had decided they deserved to know. She had looked at her father when she said Vera's name. His expression had changed in a way he had not managed to fully contain. Her father had called Vera that same Sunday evening. Aspen knew because Vera had called her the following morning and had told her, which was the kind of thing Vera did, because she believed Aspen deserved to know what was happening in conversations that concerned her. Her dad had called with the specific energy of a son who had been surprised by his mother's action and needed to understand it, not calmly, Vera had said, but not cruelly either. He had asked why she had done it without telling him. He had asked whether she understood what she had made possible and what it said about her view of his decision. He had asked several things that were really the same question said in different ways. Vera had let him finish each one before she responded. Aspen had asked Vera what she had said in response. Vera had said, "I told him the truth." Vera had told Aspen what she had said to her father on that Sunday evening call, had told her specifically, because she had decided Aspen had the right to know every part of the story that involved her. She had told her son that she had watched him build a good life and raise his children and work hard, and that she loved him for all of it. She had told him that burning his daughter's college acceptances was something she had not been able to sit with, that she had thought about it for 3 weeks after Aspen had told her, and had not been able to find a version of it she could accept. She had told him that she had done what she was able to do. She had told him that Aspen had earned her education through 3 years of her own work, and that it had not been his to burn. She had said it without anger. She had said it as the truth. He had been quiet on the line for a long time after she finished. Aspen moved into her university dormitory on a Thursday morning in January, 6 months later than her original timeline, and exactly on the schedule that Vera's trust and Robert Crane's disbursement and one admissions coordinator's decision to preserve a financial aid package had collectively made possible. Her mom had driven her, a 4-hour drive that had been quiet in the specific way of two people who had things between them that were not yet ready to be spoken, but who had decided that the drive itself was worth doing. Her mom had helped carry boxes and had made the bed and had stood in the doorway of the finished room for a moment before she left. She had said, "I'm glad you're here." Aspen had said she was glad too. It was not enough and both of them knew it, and it was what was available that morning. She called Vera that evening from her desk in the dormitory, the room organized, the books on the shelf, the specific settled quality of a space that had just become hers. Vera answered on the second ring the way she always answered, with the warm, immediate presence of someone who had been looking forward to the call. Aspen had told her she was in. She had said it simply, 2 words, the same weight they carried for both of them. Vera had been quiet for a moment and then had asked if the room had good light. Aspen had looked at the window, the January evening light coming through at the angle she had assessed when she had first walked in. She had said it had a very good light. Vera had said, "Good. That matters more than people think." The shift in her parents had not been a repair. She was careful with herself about that distinction, because repair implied a return to something that had existed before, and she did not think what had existed before the fire pit was worth returning to. What happened was different from repair. Her parents had become quieter around her, not distant, just quieter, in the specific way of people who had seen the consequence of a decision they had made and were living alongside that consequence without the language to address it directly yet. Her dad asked about her coursework at family dinners with a genuine attention he had not always brought to her academic life before. Her mom sent care packages to the dormitory, Nothing elaborate, just the specific things she knew Aspen liked. Aspen received all of it without making it easier or harder than it was. Caleb had called 3 weeks into her first semester, on a Wednesday evening when she was between her last class and dinner, walking across the campus in the January cold. He had said her name when she answered, and then had been quiet for a moment in the way of someone assembling something they had been thinking about for a long time. He had said he had not known what had been done with her applications, not the full truth of it, not the fire pit, not the specific evening that had produced the specific decision. He had found out from their mom at some point after Aspen had told her parents about the trust. He said he was sorry she had paid the cost of something he hadn't asked for. He said it without qualification and without making it about himself. She had appreciated the last part most. She had told Caleb that she had separated what had been done to her from the person it had been done in the name of, that these were not the same thing, and she had understood that from the beginning. She had told him she did not hold the fire pit against him because he had not been the one standing beside it. She had said this clearly, and without the performing of forgiveness that would have been dishonest. She genuinely had separated those two things, had done the work of separating them in the 6 months between the fire pit and January, because she had understood that conflating them would cost her something she could not afford to spend. Caleb had been quiet after she said it. He had said, "You're going to be okay, aren't you?" She had said, "I already am." Vera had driven 4 hours in April to attend Aspen's first-year final presentation, a research project the department had opened to family attendance as part of an end-of-year showcase. Aspen had not asked her to come. Vera had called Robert Crane to find out the date. Robert had apparently contacted the university's department office on Vera's behalf, which Aspen had found out when her professor had mentioned that a family member had called to confirm the presentation time. Vera had arrived 20 minutes early and had taken the front row seat on the left side, the seat with the best direct sight line to the presentation screen. She stayed for the reception afterward. She had shaken Aspen's professor's hand and had asked him 2 specific questions about Aspen's work. She had stayed for dinner. She had driven home at 9. Aspen called Robert Crane's office at the end of her first year to confirm the second-year trust disbursement, a routine administrative call, the kind that the trust's terms required before each academic year's funding was processed. His assistant had put her through directly. Robert had confirmed the disbursement timeline and had asked how the year had gone. She had told him the grades, the professor relationships, the specific sense of being exactly where she was supposed to be that had arrived sometime in February and had not left. He had listened and had said he was glad. Then he had said Vera called yesterday to make sure the disbursement was on schedule. She had called the day before Aspen had. He had said Vera had wanted to make sure everything was in order before Aspen thought to check. Aspen had sat with that for a moment. Then she said, "That sounds exactly like her." Robert had said, "It does."